Hello artists! Last week I told you we'd do another Matisse-inspired project. And the project we're going to do this week is collage. Collage is where you take paper and you tear it or you cut it and then you rearrange it on another surface to form a new art piece. So if you remember, last week we used Matisse's project, the goldfish, as inspiration to create our own watercolors. And Matisse was first known as being a painter and a sculptor. He lived from 1869 to 1954 and he was French. But as Matisse got older, he became bedbound. He either was in bed or he was in a wheelchair, and you can see his covers here. So he explored a whole new kind of art, which was cutouts. They call them cutouts. Some say drawing with scissors. So here he is in his bed cutting out. And he had people who actually painted the paper for him and then would arrange the paper on the walls using pins, and they would arrange it and he would tell them where to arrange or rearrange. This is a piece, a picture of a piece called The Sheaf. And one neat quote that he had, he said was, "You see, as I am obliged to remain often in bed, I have made a little garden all around me where I can walk. There are leaves, fruit, a bird." So he would place these and it became like his garden where he could sort of walk in his mind. So let's just look at a couple other pictures of Matisse to inspire us. So this piece right here is a Matisse piece, and so notice kind of the organic solid shapes that he had. Notice also his background. And this one is called the Creole Dancer, and I'm going to show you kind of two parts of it. So this is his piece, a copy of what his piece looked like. And this is if you took it out and you just placed it on a black background. So do you see how the bright colors kind of add to the movement of the piece, kind of adds to the theme, the joy, the happiness of the piece? So this was a Matisse cutout. This is from a book by Chronicle Books and Mila Boutin, and it's an art activity pack that has some Matisse ideas in it. So anyhow, the materials that you are going to need for this, oh, one more thing I forgot. I wanted to show you how large some of his pieces were, and then he had these pinned to his wall. So this is even just a smaller portion. This painting continues on over here, but this person is passing it. This was called the Parakeet and the Mermaid, and the mermaid is actually over here somewhere. So this shows you how huge some of his pieces were. Others were not quite that large. So what you're going to need for this project is something to paint or cut out. I again think cardstock is something you have at home, so you could use white cardstock and paint it. You could use colored cardstocks and cut out colored cardstocks, or you could even use scrapbook paper if you wanted to do that. But Matisse generally used solid colors that were painted. You are going to need some scissors and you are going to need some glue. So I want to show you what I did. I took some plain white paper and I painted it with acrylic paints. I used acrylic paints because I liked to get some texture, and you can see I got a little texture on here. So I used primary colors because I like primary colors and they always go together, and painted those. A couple of them, what I did is I took like two yellows and I rubbed them together and pulled them apart, and then I got that texture. While I was doing this, the wind came up and blew a blue on top of my yellow, and I got that. I thought, well, that's cool, I'm going to save it, but I'm not going to use it for this piece because Matisse did pretty much solid colors, and I am going to go ahead and use those solid colors. If you don't, you can use watercolors. You could use crayon to create your colors, but you are going to need some colors. So then what you will also need is a pencil. And if you see, I drew a shape that I kind of was Matisse inspired on the back of here. And then I would cut that shape out. So let me just pull one that I did and have already cut out. So here's one that I did, and it is already cut out. So I drew on the back, hard to see with the paint, and then I cut it out. Now, when you cut out a Matisse for this Matisse inspired project, you are going to use both what we call your positive and your negative. So don't throw anything away for this. Matisse used both positive and negative in his pieces. What do you mean? Well, let me give you a couple examples of that. So in the piece that I created and showed you here, I cut out this shape and then this right here, like these two fit right in here, and then I reused that shape again. In this piece right here that I showed you by Matisse, you'll see that there he'd cut a leaf out of here and he used that negative space. So he uses both positive and negative space, and you can arrange that positive and negative space. Now, if you'd like, you can do what I did on mine here, and that is you could use a colored piece. I used an orange piece, and then I placed some other pieces on top. So you can get a solid color of cardstock or something, and then create a background, kind of like the background that you see here where he had some blocks of color and then put maybe some of his cutouts over the top of it. So what you can do is just kind of arrange and say, how else? Maybe I'll put this here, and then maybe I will put like this, and kind of put this here, and then I just kind of position and arrange until I find something that I like. So I'll just play with it. I like those two kind of overlapping just a little bit, and play with it until I find and arrange something that I like. And then I can take my pieces and start gluing my pieces over the top of what I have created. Now, run off the page, and you don't have to, like when I've got this whole thing, this I had was left over from my other project. So this was here's my positive, here's my negative, and then I can just like glue that on. What I did when I ran off the page was I'd glue this on, and then I'd turn it over when I'm done and it's glued down, and cut off the excess that went over the page. But you can just kind of arrange things until you like them. Like I said, don't throw anything away. This came from the inside of this, and you can reuse it. You could probably almost create two projects. You can also, you noticed the one Matisse picture that I showed you, the sheath was just done on white. So you can just go ahead and choose a white piece of cardstock and start arranging your pieces and deciding how you want to arrange and use your pieces. Again, you don't have to use a whole of a piece, and just until you get something that you are kind of happy with, and just arrange, then glue down and cut out. So this is just a fun project. You could do it over several days. I painted my pieces one day, I drew the next day, and then kind of decided how I wanted them and glued them down. But I kind of looked, I say I don't like it that way, I like it this way, and kind of looked and would arrange and rearrange before I glued my pieces down. I glued my background shapes down, the blues and the yellows first. Then I kind of noticed you've got some nice movement here. You get some movement with the red. If you follow the black, your eyes get some nice movement. You can follow the blue. And the pieces themselves in Matisse's paintings have movement. So you get some nice movement. You can incorporate movement, which is really important in art. You can incorporate texture. And here I have a student project that we did this in 4th grade a couple of years ago. They would now be 6th graders. It was just for fast finishers project. So you'll see this was a student. I really like the colors. I like how this space is filled. I like there's like movement with the orange. Here is the positive, this kind of butterfly shape, and you can see the negative right here. And just some really nice movement on this project. So this is a Matisse project. Again, if you do this, I'd love to see your work in your portfolio. So goodbye, students.